I've been watching a lot of the nonverbal experts, looking at this case, examining this case, and they're all right.
Hmm.
I haven't seen a wrong one, but I like to boil things down really simply so everyone can do it, and everyone does do it. We are all taking in and observing tempos around us, and we see in him a deviation from the tempo when he is under stress. Because stress could be deception, stress could be just bad thoughts and memories. In this case, I'm guessing he's under deception is what's causing his stress.
Yeah, I would guess so. Another interesting thing about the trial of Robert Tellis is he's trying to run with this conspiracy theory, which I don't even completely understand. I mean, I'm trying to gather it up of like this evil uh, real estate agency that was, I don't know, it just none of it really adds up very well. But in closing, with any conspiracy, a lot of people have to be in on it. I don't think anybody looks at Robert Tellis and goes, "Yeah, that's worth my time or worth risking my safety to set up a murder for hire plot to frame Robert Tellis." Let's take a look at some of the closing arguments that were made by the
Yeah.
prosecution.
And here's the thing that struck me when I took over this case. I would submit to most people, probably before ever hearing about this case, had no idea what a public administrator was. He is not a U.S. senator. He is not a governor. He is not a congressperson. He is a duly elected official who manages an office of approximately 8 people. And their job is to assist people who pass away, who don't leave a will and leave property behind. The public administrator's office is not at the forefront of everyone's mind in this community. No one learns about this until who brings the office to light? Jeff Gehrman. And what's amazing is if you believe that story about this conspiracy, all of these people and all of these entities were willing to sacrifice their reputation, their business, their police department, even the public administrator's office. They're all willing to put it on the line to kill a reporter, to get that guy, even though he's leaving in 3 months? Does that make a shred of sense? Absolutely not. But what it does give you a window into is what's in his mind. That is how important Mr. Tellis views himself. That every single one of these people, every single one of these entities were literally willing to kill another human being who is not him just to frame him.
How the jury hasn't come back yet, I don't know. But
Uh,
oh my
what,
God, the
beautiful.
expressions on him during that, just if you're listening to this, he just had this look of like, yeah, of course they're all doing that. They're because he believes that everybody's willing to put themselves on the line for him.
Yeah, it was. What a great job the defense did, didn't it?
Yes.
As we said a couple times talking about this case, show me an example of this level of conspiracy anywhere.
Anywhere. Yes.
And you and I have covered a lot of cases of murder for hire,
Hmm.
and they're generally unraveled if more than 2 people are involved.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Because people got big mouths.
yeah.
It just works out that way because again, let's do our thought experiment here. The types of people that would be involved in a murder for hire, would you say they're healthy or unhealthy types of people?
I'm gonna go with unhealthy.
Unhealthy people do really stupid things and they're not thinking very clearly, and generally they're induced by a lot of mood altering and mind altering kind of substances a lot of times as
Mhm.
well, and so they're going to do stupid things that get themselves caught. That's why murder for hires generally don't get away. Serial killers get away with things because they're solo people acting solo because they're
Mhm.
nuts. But murder for hires, they're really rough. Very I especially his theory of this conglomeration of the entire basically county lining up
Yeah.
against him.
And
What?
large companies too, not just a bird, like
Yeah,
literally a whole company. Let's
you
watch
know,
what.
he should
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have done a few things before he even tried this. One, he should have gone to acting school first. I mean, he's horrible on the stand. And the other thing he should have done is really do some. I mean, he's a lawyer. He's supposed to do these things. Do some research. Come up with an actual case he could actually cite where this has actually happened before. Doesn't that make no sense as a lawyer? He should know some
Yeah.
case law. He should know some case law where this was actually used as a defense effectively.
I'd love to
Zippo.
talk to a former client of his. If anybody ever used him as an attorney, that would be an interesting
They're probably
story.
all in jail.
You're probably right. Let's take one more look at the closing arguments, talking about the timeline and his own testimony, just really sinking his case. Let's watch this.
But he had no issue with anything in that timeline at first. And another thing, when the defendant testified, a lot of times he didn't use phraseology like, I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, or I didn't stab him, or I didn't go to that scene. It was never that. I mean, maybe from times he would say it, you'll check your notes, but the vast majority of the time, Mr. Tellez would say it like this. I'd like to think I wouldn't do something like this. I'd like to think that I wouldn't do that. I'd like to think I wouldn't take my children's sports balls out of the bag to use for a killing. It's an interesting phraseology. The state would submit it's a bit of a tell. Because he could have just simply said, I didn't do that. I didn't touch that bag. But that's not how he words his behavior. It's this like Monday morning quarterback. I'd like to think I wouldn't, because it's really bad. You can weigh that when you're evaluating how honest and truthful he was when testifying. And again, for all his talk about being conspired against by powerful enemies, it's actually the defendant that uses the power of his office's proprietary software to spy on and discover where Gehrman lives and what type of car he drove. He used the power of the office, Mr. Tellez. And here's another thing. Remember the map that they brought up, kind of trying to show the drive from the PA's office to Popeye's? When you study that, remember it's Analyst Hovanet's testimony. Those reports out of Axiom from the work computer aren't converted for UTC time. So he was trying to use it to say, like, I couldn't have done this at this certain time. It's not UTC converted. And then we get to where are you? Remember, every single message between the defendant and his wife on 9/22 are on the timeline, with the exception of where are you?
Pretty cut and dry.
That prosecutor is so good. He's such a good behaviorist.
Yeah. Yeah.
He really is. The phrase, he's so right. The phraseology that Tellez used to distance themselves from those events, that's not something I would do. That, I wouldn't have done that. He never once, I mean, like the prosecutor said, maybe once or twice, but he used distancing words. He used a lot of conjecture. He used a lot of word modifiers, I call them. And he also, besides the distancing, I mean, he put hypotheses out there of what he would or wouldn't do. I mean, it was just everything you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is watching him like talk, make a comment to his defense attorney as if, he's full of bunk. What? You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're such an idiot.
When you think you can outsmart the room no matter what, and that's what he truly thinks he's doing. Super glue was a part of this case where he talked about super gluing his finger back together. I'm almost wondering if it's like his hand, his arm is like super glued to his chin, because every time you see him, he's got his fist balled up and it's like attached to his, even when he moves around, it's like still there. Very odd, but also it's a defense type thing, I'm sure, as well. Hands up, kind of covering. I mean, that in itself right there was a big tell for me as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of blocking. It's still just watching his nonverbal, just watching him. It's hard to imagine that he so firmly believes in his own narrative, but he really does.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of weird. I mean, he's got this disconnect from reality, it looks like, because I mean, so if you didn't know what was being said and just look at him, it looks as if he was just told, "Hey, you're going to jail for the rest of your life," and that's his reaction for going to jail for the rest of his life, or not the reaction of someone who doesn't believe what's being said. He literally he doesn't believe what's being said about him.
No.
As if he was. It's weird.
It's
What a this
it reminds me of Lori Vallow quite a bit.
It really does, but he's more higher functioning than Lori
Yeah,
Vallow was.
yeah,
That's why I mean it's really weird. Vallow, yeah, she's a nut job, my technical term.
sure.
Because, she is 100% totally believes all the garbage spewing out of her and Chad's mouth about even talking to her kids in the afterlife, and they said they're all doing fine and great. Yeah, totally believes that. She's a nut. This guy, I don't think he's nuts. I think that's why it's really weird because he's much more higher functioning. He had a job. Lori never had a job. Her job was to
Yeah,
kill people and get their insurances.
I'm gonna go with sociopath. I think
Yeah,
that
high functioning.
yeah, very high functioning sociopath. It seems to be the only way to explain it because he seems to go beyond just narcissist and everything else. This is someone
Yeah.
who believes his own insanity and just
I'd be
mingles
really
it in.
curious about him on a poly as well. It would be really interesting to see if he
I think
would
he'd pass.
poly. From the look of him, I
Yeah,
would think it would. I don't know if he'd pass it, but might come back inconclusive.
yeah.
Just because boy, he fell in love with his own narrative. He really did.
Oh yeah, yeah, completely.
But as you can see from his effect, though, he's got zero empathy. So he's definitely edging up on psychopathy. At least my non clinical licensed way of saying it, because he has no emotional connection to anyone or anything but himself.
The technical term that we should remember for the future, Fruit Loop, is the one. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.